How much will prices fall on average?
Well, good morning. They're falling about 1 or 2 cents a day in Sydney, Melbourne. Adelaide's falling a lot quicker. Brisbane, unfortunately, is actually going up because they are at the point of their cycle where they were cheaper last week. So we are seeing falls leading into Christmas. We would like to see the falls happen quicker than what they have been because historically, throughout 2020, what we know is that when the prices go up with the cycle, they spike very quickly. And when they fall at a snail's pace, and that's what we're currently seeing. But they are certainly falling in most of the capitals that have price cycles.
Is the advice to shop around? Because I guess we risk the possibility, Peter, that not all retailers will follow suit.
Well, they never do. And so, yes, absolutely, please do shop around. I mean, in Sydney this morning, the gap between the cheapest and the most expensive service station is somewhere between 50 and 60 cents a litre. So that's obviously absurd. And we don't want people filling up the service station that's 50 or 60 cents a litre more expensive than the one that's currently at 98 cents. And we also know that across most of the capitals, there are servos that are on or just below $1. About 10 or 11% of the service stations in Sydney right now are anywhere between 98 cents and $1.20. So that gives you some indication of why it's important to fill up, to do your research before you fill up. Depending on where you live, that can be very easy, like in New South Wales, where you've got real-time data. So the price of every service station in real time is available on the NRMA app. We're seeing some of the other states catch up with that technology, but not all of them yet.
Now, we are currently experiencing an outbreak in Sydney, Peter, of COVID-19. Is that likely at all to have an impact?
No. So it certainly should not have an impact in any way. And the factors that will determine prices in Australia don't happen in Australia. They happen globally. So we shouldn't see any sort of impact on the petrol price as a result of what's currently happening on the northern beaches and across other parts of Sydney. And it's certainly something we'll be monitoring pretty closely. So we do want those service stations to continue to drop their price on the northern beaches and in other parts of Sydney. I don't think anyone in Australia, in Sydney or Australia right now, has any patience or tolerance for anything other than doing the right thing at the Bowser.
No, certainly not. Now, the NRMA has conducted an analysis. Can you take us through how petrol prices have compared, say, from this year to last year?
Yeah, so what we know from 2020 is as a result of the coronavirus, prices on average were cheaper because oil prices plummeted during that extended period when the world effectively went into lockdown. But what we also know is that they weren't as cheap as they should have been, and that's because the profit margins in 2020 were the highest they've been certainly since we've been keeping records. And so the average gap between the wholesale and retail price was 16 cents this year. It was 10 cents last year. In Sydney, where we have price cycles, there was a couple of cycles where at the high point of the cycle, when the profit margins are the highest, they got as high as 41 cents. That's certainly more than anything we've ever seen before. So while the volume of fuel sold in Australia fell and while the average price fell, the oil companies absolutely made the most of their own price cycles that they've introduced in the country. We've had less cycles in 2020, which means that motorists were exposed to higher prices longer, and we know that the margins were higher as well. So in a year when so many struggled in Australia to make ends meet, it seemed like an odd strategy to us. And that's why we're saying to the oil companies now, you've got a week before the end of the year, do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Only 1 week or so left, so fingers crossed. Now, Peter, where can people find the best bargains in Sydney for petrol?
Like I said, there are a few bargains around. Southwest and Western Sydney, we're seeing a number of service stations on or just below $1. And again, right across the country, you're going to see those sorts of opportunities in the capital cities. At least they're it's a bit more stable outside of the capital cities. Most of the countries around $1.20, some are below $1.20 on average, but certainly in Sydney, southwest and western Sydney, we're seeing some good bargains. The inner west, and those prices are, they're available to the community in real time. You can find them really easily. You can either get on the government's fuel check website or get on the NRMA's app. And so if you are going to be driving around, and obviously there'll be fewer people doing that now, but people are still going to have to drive around. And if you are driving around, do your research before you fill up.